Today's guest, Crissy, grew up in a trailer park, battled depression and suicidal ideation as a teen, survived a 13,000-volt electrocution in a near-fatal car accident, walked 500 miles across Spain to rediscover her purpose, and now leads a thriving community, making sure no mom walks alone. Her story is one of survival, identity, connection, and choosing momentum even when life has tried to end her more than once. Crissy, welcome to Tumble Upward.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here, and thank you for that introduction. I've never really heard myself explained that way, so it's kind of
Does it sound crazy as an intro?
It does, actually.
Yeah, definitely got a lot there to talk about. So can you take us back to your childhood first? So what was it like growing up in a trailer park with your mum?
Yeah, great question. I actually didn't know for the longest time that there was anything unique or different, I guess, about my upbringing. My mom made everything really fun, and it was just me and her growing up. I was an only child raised by a single mom, and things were exciting. She made me laugh all the time. We had a lot of fun. It really wasn't until probably the 4th grade is when I first remember that people maybe looked down upon me because of the home that I lived in. I remember walking home, and the trailer park I grew up in was right next door to my elementary school. And basically, the wealthier kids went to the right when they left school, and those of us in the trailer park turned and walked to the left. And I always remember there was this kind of division, and it was in the 4th grade where this one girl in particular started making comments. And as my little group of people turned to the left, she would call out things like, "Why don't you just go home, you trailer trash?" and things like that. And that really kind of became a defining moment for me. I think it became sort of this thread throughout my story of, oh, maybe I'm not enough. Maybe other people are better than me. And why is there this something different here for me?
So do you feel it was more so getting into your teenage years that you started to notice that stuff, let alone rather than a young kid where your mum can distract you from it more?
Yeah, absolutely. There was always a sort of, I'm a very empathetic, deeply feeling person, and I have always been. And I think throughout my childhood, even in my young years, there was a little bit of sadness that ran through me. And I recognize that both my parents did the best they could in the circumstances that they had. But I do know that a big part of my story was growing up without my dad. And I remember looking around, seeing all the other little girls going to the daddy-daughter dance, or having their dads pick them up at school or teach them how to throw a ball, or going to their sports games with them. And I didn't have that. And there was, even in my happy times with my mom, there were these moments where I would wonder, why didn't he want to be a part of my life? What did I do wrong? And again, I don't want to in any way say that he did something wrong, my mom did something wrong. They were both doing the best they could, and I'm a parent now and I recognize that.
Yeah.
But also as a parent now, I recognize the pain in not having one of your parent figures there for you. And that is a thread that I think carried with me, and that sort of message of, I'm not enough, or there's something wrong with me.
Yeah. Do you think that carried into your personal thoughts when you were older and you started dating other guys?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. I definitely found myself looking for external validation and wanting to prove my worth. I always wanted to be the best. I had a certain need for perfectionism, and I had to have people prove their love to me almost constantly.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't until my adulthood and therapy and all the things that I think I've moved past that, I hope, mostly.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that caused you to choose the wrong partners in the beginning as well?
In some instances, yeah, I definitely had a streak there, I guess, where I liked bad boys and,
Yeah.
you know, would test the boundaries. I was probably looking for attention and love. I was looking for love.
Yeah, for sure.
I could not wait to get out of the town that I grew up in. So as soon as I graduated high school at 17 and I was gone. I moved from Maryland to Florida, so across the United States, north
Yeah.
to south, so that I could just get as far away as I could.
What were sort of the key changes that you think you made in terms of recreating yourself that you didn't want to bring from your past?
Oh, that's such a good
Tricky
question.
question, sorry.
No, I appreciate it. I think that I recognized that I well, I'm sure we're going to talk about this soon, but I will also say my car accident happened when I was 16, so
Okay.
just before I left.
Yeah.
And that plays a big role, I think, in the transformation and the changes that I went through right before I left and went off to college.
Yeah.
I recognized that I wanted to be happy. I didn't want to sit in a dark space. I didn't want to worry about people loving me or worry that I wasn't good enough or spend time trying to be perfect. I recognized that I did actually want to live my life. I
Mm.
wanted to show up in the world and see all the beautiful things that were around me and appreciate them. And I think I just recognized that I wanted to show up with a smile on my face rather than looking around, comparing myself to everyone and seeing all the ways that I felt I was lacking and that my world as I saw it, was lacking in some way.
Yeah, so almost seeing life through a more sort of positive lens and leaning
Yeah.
on what's good rather than what's bad or what I don't have compared to that person.
Yeah. I think it was definitely a shift from sort of this negative headspace. And I don't think it was just a headspace. I mean, there was a lot of things there, but
Mm.
it really was like just a shift of this is a gift. This life that I've been given, this breath of air is such an opportunity. And I don't want to waste it because it can be taken from me in an instant.
Yeah,
And I'm so grateful to be here.
yeah, which you had known from your car crash.
Yes. Yeah.
So let's dive into the car crash. You can tell me as many of the details as you remember from prior, during, and after.
Yeah. So prior to that point, so this was when I was 16. It was the summer between my junior and senior year of high school. And you had briefly mentioned suicidal ideation and being depressed as a teenager. And that was a part of my story. Through my sophomore year and junior year of high school, there were some pretty dark times for me. And there were some moments where I thought that perhaps I didn't want to be here anymore.
Mhm.
And I was out with some friends and we had decided that we were going to go back to another friend's house. And we hopped in the car. It was in the evening, not super late, but it was dark out. It was nighttime. And I was driving and I had a friend in the passenger seat with me. And then we had two friends in their car behind us. And we were driving. I remember my friend said to me, this is back in, the 2000 when you have like CD cases.
Yep,
So
I
he had
used to have
opened
that.
my, yeah, he had
Yep.
opened my, it was fuzzy blue. He opened my CD case and I was trying to tell him that I wanted to listen to this new Limp Bizkit song. So he drops the CD and, I'm just like, oh, don't worry about it. I'll get it. And I bend down to grab the CD and we were on a bendy, curvy road. And it was like that in an instant. And I don't remember anything more from this point. This is all from what my friends in the car behind me and in the passenger seat told me later.
Mm.
Picking up the CD, and he says the next thing he knows is that I looked up and I screamed, and don't really know what happens from there. But from what he and my friends have shared with me, he was still conscious. I was knocked unconscious at that point, and he opened the door to step out of the car, and he put his foot down. He was wearing boots, and he was still holding on to the door handle. So we had hit a utility pole, and the pole snapped, and there were wires swinging everywhere. And basically, when he had his hand on the car and he put his boot down on the ground, he conducted electricity through his body, and he was shot about 20 feet through the air into a field, and the electricity shot through the car, and it came out the speaker in the side of my door. So the electricity shot through my left calf, and then it went out through my through my left big toe.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I have the exit wound. And I wound up with first, second, and third degree burns up and down my left leg. And they would later say that if I hadn't have been wearing the sandals I was wearing, there's a good chance that that's what kept my heart going, because the electricity had an easy exit.
Jeez.
Because I had sandals that had my toe exposed,
right,
and just made the electricity easier to go out. The back seat was on fire. I have some wire marks on my left arm where the wires touched me. And luckily, we had friends behind us who were able to call for help very quickly. And the emergency technicians came, and they, yelled at our friends to stay back. The ground was live with electricity, so you couldn't really walk on anything. It would spark. And they ended up calling for a medevac, and I was airlifted to the Washington burn unit, which was not necessarily close, but it was the best burn unit in the immediate vicinity. Interestingly, it's actually where a lot of victims from 9/11 would go.
Wow.
Just 3 weeks later.
Jeez.
From when this all happened. So I was medevac to the hospital. My friend was taken just via ambulance to a different hospital, and he would be released the next day. He was thankfully fine.
So he was okay. He survived.
Yes. Yeah. He's totally fine. We both have exit wounds on our toes.
Yeah.
That was the only wound that I think, or scar that he had left.
Yeah.
And I was in the burn unit for several weeks. I had several skin graft surgeries where they would come and they took a really thin sliver of skin from my left butt cheek,
Mm-hmm.
and they fused it with sharp cartilage, and they essentially covered the hole that was in my left leg. Because when you have a third-degree burn, that basically means your muscle and parts of your bone are exposed.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to cover the hole in my leg, basically. And so that involved a lot of going back and forth for surgeries. Burns are excruciating, very painful.
I've heard they're the most painful because all your nerve endings are burnt off.
Yes, it is. I truly don't remember. I mean, my brain has definitely worked overtime to shield me from the memories. I really don't have any memory of that period of time. It is all from my mom and friends. And yeah, so in and out of hospital for different surgeries, and, was in a wheelchair and on crutches for a while because I couldn't really walk on my leg. And that was the start of my senior year. So the school thankfully worked with me. I had most of my credits, so they let me just take my 2 classes, my English class and I think maybe a math class that I needed. And then I was able to leave early to go to different physical therapies and stuff. So the school really worked with me so that I could graduate on time. And, it was interesting. I recognized at that time who was really there for me, because I was always this person that was sort of friends with everybody, but didn't necessarily have a super close friend necessarily,
Yeah.
but I was friends with everybody,
Yeah.
you know, and it was amazing to me to recognize the people that took the time to show up for me. There were a couple girls who I remember for homecoming, my leg was pretty gross looking and I couldn't wear a short dress and I had to wear a long dress, which at the time everyone was wearing short dresses and I just felt very something about that. And they all went and bought long dresses with me and you know, just little things, how people show up for you.
Yeah.
And it really makes you pause and say, you know what? These are my people and these are people that deserve my time and attention. And I want to remember that, the people that show up for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not like obviously the verbal affirmation and everything is nice, but when they're taking clear actions without words to show that they're there for you, that's really special.
Absolutely. It's powerful. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah, for sure. And then, so you said after the accident, you got sort of that positive outlook on life. Was that straight away, or did you go through a period where you were very down once you remember after the accident and you went back to school?
Yes, I definitely did. There was definitely a lot of pain medications for
Yeah.
a little while, and trying to navigate school and different kinds of physical therapies and graduation. You know, it was not immediate per se, but also it was. I guess
Yeah.
that's kind of a confusing answer. But I think on one hand, I immediately recognized I want to live and I am grateful to be alive. And I never, ever thought about taking my own life again or the desire to not be here because, again, this is a gift. So
Yeah.
that part was immediate.
Yeah.
I think my optimistic outlook and the belief that in any moment we can look around and we can find something to be thankful for, and there's something beautiful in every day, and there's good in people, and like that kind of optimistic side of me sort of came over time as I started to think about what had happened and unpack what it meant for me and sort of explore how it had changed me. But that part, I think, took a little more time.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you keep any of those friends when you left school?
No. I for a little bit, but I think that as I had mentioned before, my teen years feel like a very dark period in my life, and I really wanted a clean slate. I really just wanted to leave and
Yeah.
start fresh and recreate myself, and that I think is what I did.
And then when you did move, did you go to university or how did you restart your life?
I did. Yes, I went to college in Florida. I did go to university, and it was a college that was close to where my dad was. So I chose to go there because I wanted to get to know my dad. And that was really the first time I had really met him. And we were able to build a friendship during my time at university. And I think that was a very positive outcome. It's also where I met who is now my husband.
How did you feel the first time you were, or like properly first time meeting your dad?
I don't even know if there are enough words to describe that. I anxious,
Yeah.
certainly. You know, for as a little girl that's constantly worried, why didn't he want me? Why didn't he want to be a part of my life? What did I do wrong? I think there was some fear of, again, not being enough.
Yeah.
And this desire to prove myself, this intense desire to prove my worth. And I think that that was something that was underlying a lot of that relationship, not just the first meeting. But I also knew that, I mean, I knew about him. He did send birthday cards and Christmas presents. And, you know, I knew about him, and I knew that he was a fun guy. And it was like meeting a part of myself that had been missing for a long time, because there are some parts of my personality that are very clearly him. And it was really nice to kind of see and get to know this other part that you come from. And I think that's an important part of knowing both of your parents, because you are a part of both of your parents. And I know not everybody has a great relationship with their parents, and, sadly, sometimes we lose a parent or whatever the case may be. Whenever we can, I think having that opportunity to at least know the other person in some capacity can be very healing if you grew up not having that relationship and having all of these questions.
Yeah.
I will say he tried to kind of talk about it in that one of those like first dinners that we had, and I couldn't handle it. I very quickly shut the conversation down and was just said, "It's okay. I don't want to talk about it. Let's just, have a glass of wine and carry on." I wasn't able to handle the big emotion there in that conversation with him.
Yeah, but over time, you could slowly delve into that stuff.
Well,
not so much.
I think it's still a part of my story that is raw, I guess. I think that being a parent now and having my daughter, there are so many parts of it that are still hurt. Like there's still some pain there, I think. But again, I just want to reiterate, I do understand where they were both at and the decisions they made and how it felt like the best thing that they could do. And that's all any parent can do, right?
Yeah.
Is the best thing in the moment that you're able and capable of doing at that time. So I'm grateful for the friendship that I have with him now, and that I get to know him, and that my daughter gets to know her grandfather.
Yeah. And every parent has regrets. I guess we can't do anything perfectly.
Absolutely. My daughter's only 8 and I have some already. So
yeah. And also, I don't have kids myself, but I know as I age and I change every couple of years, your outlook on life changes, your values, your perspective of everything. So that's going to change along the journey of when you're raising your kids as well. So things you'd done 10 years ago with your kid maybe wouldn't be what you do with them now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's definitely seasons and phases, and we have to change with our kids as our kids change, and be willing to be flexible and move with them in the phases that they're in.
Yeah. What's your favorite thing you love about being a parent?
Seeing her joy, seeing her deciding what she loves and what she wants to do, and overcoming challenges, and the joy when she does something that she's been working so hard to accomplish. There's just something really, really powerful about just the joy that lights up her face.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it really also makes you pause and appreciate things. She points out the clouds to me. She points out the beautiful leaves, and it really is, okay, you know what? I need to be present, because she's right. These are those beautiful things that we want to see and remember.
Yeah. And nothing else really matters.
Nothing. It's true.
Yeah. I love that about kids. I myself do notice those things sometimes, and people think I'm a bit weird, because I'll just be like, oh, look at that ladybug, or that flower's really nice, or like the colors on the trees like in autumn or whatnot. But kids are really good at pointing that stuff out all the time.
They really are.
Yeah.
And I actually felt like I was very good at doing that at different points in my life, like after my car accident, when I walked the Camino. Like there were moments in my life where I became super aware of the beauty that surrounds me and the power of looking at those little things like the ladybug or the flower. And then the busyness of life and work and responsibilities sort of ekes that away from you a little bit. So I do think that having a child is a very powerful kind of rope that pulls you back to those moments.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about the walk you did. I'm going to attempt to say it Camino de Santiago?
Yeah, that was good. Camino de Santiago. It is a pilgrimage through northern Spain. So I'm going to say this in miles. It's 500 miles, 800 something kilometers,
Yeah.
something like that. And basically, I was a teacher. After I graduated college, Noah and I got married and we moved to North Carolina, and I became a high school teacher, and I taught for 4 years. And then I just had a moment where I kind of realized I wasn't happy. I wasn't completely fulfilled. And Noah encouraged me. I mean, he knew my friend, a colleague of mine, was going on this trip, and I was supposed to go with her for like 2 weeks. And he was basically like, why don't you quit your job and not go back to teaching next year? You can figure out what you want to do when you get back, but go do the whole Camino. And I just want to pause right there and recognize the privilege that I had in having someone say that, and the financial means to do that. And so
I love that support,
we did.
though.
Yes, I have the most supportive husband in the world. He's truly incredible. And we saved up. I mean, I saved a lot of money and made it happen. And basically I went with 2 girlfriends, and we flew to France. You actually start in the Pyrenees Mountains, and we walked 500 miles across northern Spain. You stop at different, they're sort of like hostels, they're albergues, and you sleep in these bunk beds. And oh my goodness, we got bed bugs, which was horrible. And we slept on little cots on the floor of these beautiful churches and cathedrals, and we met incredible people. One of the most amazing women I ever met was on the Camino. She's actually Australian.
Love that.
We walked almost the whole thing together every day, just talking.
Yeah.
And she made me try the Vegemite, which I had mentioned, and
which I don't
was
like.
Not my jam.
I agree. It's horrible. Pro-Mite's better. It's unpopular belief.
But I mean, anyway, so we had a really great time, and it was such a phenomenal experience. So my friend that I went with, we were both teachers, and she basically said, we're going, but we're leaving our phones. We're not going to have internet access, and we're just going to we're just going to do this.
That's so cool.
So I left my phone. I didn't communicate with my husband I would chat with him on Facebook like once a week or something, but I didn't talk to him. I didn't have the internet or social media, and we would walk 20 miles a day. And, we walked through wheat fields where there just wasn't anything. And then we'd walk through these cities, and it was absolutely beautiful. I do remember I had what I would call an epiphany. I had a couple actually when I was on the Camino, and these were very instrumental for where I am today. Mm-hmm. So one of them, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do when I got home and what I wanted to do with my life. And I felt called to do something meaningful and impact lives and make a difference. And I was really stuck in my head, and I was just walking by myself all day, no podcasts, no music, you're just in your head and your thoughts.
Yeah.
And it was just clear as day, words in my head, accept what is. Accept what is. And I didn't even have to think about it. It was just this inner knowing of such a sense of peace. And there is so much outside of my control. And I am a person that's constantly trying to control all the pieces of the puzzle. Mm. And in that moment, I just knew I can't. Why do I keep trying when there's so much outside of my control? Just accept what is.
Yeah.
And the amount of peace that I felt, I can't even describe it. And sadly, it's not something that I was able to hold on to forever.
Yeah.
Noah said when I got home, I was kind of a different person for a long time. But again, life sort of gets at you
Yeah.
and kind of pulls you out of it. But I remember very deeply how strong of a feeling that was. And then the other epiphany I had came a few weeks later, but it was just relationships are everything. And I think that really hit home for me as I thought about the people that were important in my life. It was actually on the Camino that I also realized that I did want to try to have a child. Noah, my partner, my husband, and I weren't sure if we wanted to have a child or not. And it was actually on the Camino that I said, you know what, I think I do want to have a kid.
Mm.
And he was a little surprised when I came home and said that.
You think it would be the opposite, like, because you had so much freedom and whatnot?
Yeah, I think the Camino, because it is a religious pilgrimage for a lot of people, not for everybody, but so many people are there doing it because they are looking for something, for meaning, for guidance, for just something deep. There's a deep spirituality to the experience and the people on the journey together, and you're kind of on it together. And I think what I realized was this is my next step. I've had a lot of freedom up until this point. Noah and I were a bit older at that point. I felt I was finally ready, and I think it felt like the next right step for me. And that's another thing that I've become very big on is what's the next right step. I don't
Mhm.
have to necessarily know the whole picture. I don't have to know the end goal. I just need to know what's the next right step and take it, because that's going to give me forward momentum and I will figure it out.
Yeah. I feel like you definitely wouldn't have had those epiphanies if you still had the distractions of the internet and life and everything that gets thrown at us daily to distract our minds, because we never get
You,
to look inwards.
I've never really thought about that, but you're so right. If I was walking that day and listening to a podcast or even music, right? I would probably be having deep emotional thoughts because of the song I had chosen to listen to. But
Yeah.
you're right. You need to be alone with your thoughts. You need to suffer through that boredom and
Yeah.
that racing mind until everything quiets and you can hear that deeper inner knowing
Yeah.
speak your truth.
Well, they say most creativeness and ideas are born out of boredom. So don't be scared of being bored. It's a good thing to be bored, to allow your mind to wander and reach those things.
Absolutely. I fully wholeheartedly support that.
How was it when you got to the end? What were those feelings like?
Very rewarding. You're doing something where you're literally carrying everything you have on your back. It's all on your back, and you're alone with your thoughts. You're sleeping in not very comfortable conditions. You're meeting new people every day, and you're walking. You're just walking a lot every single day, kind of alone with yourself. And when you reach the end, it is such a feeling of accomplishment, and you just feel so much more in touch with yourself
Mm.
and who you are as a person and how you want to show up in the world. And it is incredibly powerful. And I met so many amazing people. And I think people that do the Camino, so many of them are going through some kind of life change or transformation or struggle or overcoming something. And I think that's how a lot of people on the Camino connect.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really powerful thing too. So there was a sense of camaraderie. There
Yeah.
was a sense of we did this, and it's a big celebration.
You definitely have many like deep bonds with the people that you went through the experience with.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a very special experience.
Yeah. And then you got home, you still hadn't figured out career-wise what you wanted to do?
Correct. I knew that I wanted to have a kid, and I think at that point I was thinking I wanted to do something in the wellness space. I had always been very into weightlifting and, working out, and so I started studying for my personal trainer certification, and was doing that while I was eventually pregnant with my daughter. And I did that for a while, still not 100% sure of what direction I was taking. But again, it was that next right step, right? I just kept sort of taking the next right step that felt right in the moment, and eventually did figure it out.
And then when we caught up last time, you mentioned that you had a bit of postpartum anxiety.
Yes. Thank you for, well, thank you for bringing that up. I think that was something I might have forgotten to mention actually tonight, this
That's okay.
evening. Yes, I had my daughter, and I was aware, obviously, of postpartum depression. It was
Yes.
something I had heard of. And as someone who has depression in her family and has a history of depression, I was kind of expecting it. I was waiting to feel sad and dark and this sense of despondency. What I was not expecting was the intense anxiety. And I had never heard of postpartum anxiety. And it's a thing,
Yeah.
it is a real thing.
Yeah, neither had I.
So, yeah. So I had my daughter, and all of a sudden I was consumed by worry, and I became very concerned about germs. I was terrified I was going to drop her. Holding her in the bath became the scariest thing in the world to me because her little body was slippery, and I thought I was going to drown her accidentally. And I mean, just the amount of anxiety that would consume me. It was hard to leave the house. I remember when she eventually went into daycare, one day I was sitting at a traffic light and an ambulance drove by, and my body went into a full-blown panic attack because I was certain in my bones that that ambulance was going to get my daughter. That was 3 streetlights over. Like I literally had a mental picture of my daughter, who was 2 years old at the time, laying there bleeding on the floor, and no reason to think that, but that's where my mind went.
Yeah.
And that became a really big struggle. That's a big part of why I chose to only have one child, and was a catalyst for me deciding to launch the business that I did, and want to find a way to support other moms, because I never wanted another mom to feel the way I was feeling in, trying to raise my daughter and take care of my family.
Did you manage to get out that, or is there still a little part of you that has to deal with it every day?
I would say I'm definitely still have that bit of anxiety, and I am better in that I manage it. I recognize it. I'm able to control it. I have the tool belt and the tactics, but it is definitely something that still has kind of become a part of my personality since having a child. I also just want to put out there that there are incredible therapists, there are incredible treatments and medications available, and there are resources, and it is treatable. And I think that's really important for anyone listening to know if they are navigating any postpartum mental struggles.
Yeah. Do you have any tips that you would give any parents listening that are struggling through that, or what after they identify they have the issue? Because I guess that's the first step, where you'd recommend they go or what help they seek.
Yeah, you absolutely would want to seek out a mental health counselor or a therapist as your first stop. And obviously it depends on what sort of conditions are showing up for you. If there are thoughts of hurting yourself or your baby, that's an entirely different situation, and that's an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about in Australia, I'm sure they're available though, where there are hotlines and numbers you can call.
Yes, there are.
That will be able to offer you that immediate support. I think that's an essential thing. There are things like postpartum psychosis, where it's just a very severe situation and you need that help. And we really need other people, other family members, other members of the community to be aware of what they are looking for, because a mother in that moment isn't necessarily going to know or recognize it. And I would also say that for anybody that is currently pregnant or thinking of getting pregnant, it can be helpful to put some of those measures in place beforehand. Seek out a therapist beforehand. If you know you have a history of depression or anxiety, bring that up to your doctor and they can navigate medications with you and things like that so that you are setting yourself up to be in a space where you have that help if you need it.
Yeah. And for their support network of the mothers, what are some red flags they can look out for to be able to identify to them maybe they do have like psychosis or depression or anxiety, or what the difference is between them?
Yeah. So, depression is going to be showing up with this sort of dark cloud hanging over you. Anxiety is going to be this feeling of extreme worry and this need to kind of control everything. There's also postpartum OCD where, you have these obsessive compulsive thoughts and like the need to kind of control for different things. And postpartum psychosis can be where you hear voices and or maybe having thoughts about things that aren't actually happening or aren't there. And in all of these situations, for a family member or friend, I would say, on one hand, this individual has just given birth to a child, which is either a surgery if you had a C-section or, an intense labor experience that you need weeks to recover from. And historically, in previous societies and in generations, we had these women laying in bed for months as people took care of them. And that's not the situation anymore, especially in the United States of America. And what we need to recognize is that a lot of women are sort of trained to put on a face and show up as they're expected to, and to kind of put on this front for the world. So it is kind of up to those people who know us best to be able to look under the facade and recognize that this person, this individual is suffering, and there are going to be signs. It's going to be hard to get out of bed. It's going to be hard for them to leave the house. It's going to be hard for them to do daily tasks. And it's normal to have postpartum blues.
Yeah.
That's a few weeks where that might be present. But if it's sticking around or it's getting worse, there's definitely an opportunity there to just say, hey, I think it might be worthwhile for us to just talk to someone, just to see, just to make sure, and just to let them know that you're there and you care.
Yeah. And say if it was like a partner or a friend that has then noticed this in this person and they want to approach them about it and bring it up, is there a certain script or way they can go about it without the mother getting defensive and putting back on that facade and saying everything's okay, or feeling sort of shameful about it, which she shouldn't feel?
That's tough. I will say, I personally, at the pediatrician, they give you this test that is supposed to look for signs of this. And I remember I've always been a really good test taker, and I knew that this was a test I shouldn't fail. So I didn't answer the questions honestly, because I didn't want anyone to think I wasn't fit to be a mom, that I wasn't a good mom. This wasn't a test I wanted to fail. I didn't want someone to take my baby away from me. And, we, in many cases, aren't going to willingly share. It's going to be with our very close loved ones that know us well, that are going to be able to recognize that something's not right. And I would say leading with compassion and your care for them is what's going to make the difference. Don't make it an attack. Don't make it you're not doing the things a mom should be doing. And, there are certain things that you don't want to say to a mom anyway, but especially a mom who is maybe struggling. If you come from a place of genuine care, then I think that's the best place to start. And if you're really worried, if it's a situation where you're really concerned, there are resources online where, you can yourself speak to a therapist and get guidance going into it and get help there.
Yeah. Maybe also if you approach from a place of, it's not like, what do you need to do to fix this? It's more so of like, what can we do to help you?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you now run your incredible community for mothers in Rayleigh. Can you tell me a bit about why you built it and what you do today?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking. Her Health Collective, I like to say, is my second baby. It is a supportive community and resource hub for moms here in the Triangle area, Raleigh, North Carolina, although we are looking at expanding, which is very exciting.
That's cool.
And thank you. Basically, my business partner and I met and we realized that so many of the moms that we worked with, we were both working in the fitness space as fitness instructors and personal trainers, and we knew a lot of moms. And we realized that so many of the moms we met were all experiencing the same thing. They felt lonely and they felt overwhelmed. And we didn't want any mom to feel what we had gone through. And so the intention behind Her Health Collective is that in generations past, there was a whole village that helped to raise the children and to support the mothers.
Yeah.
And that's what we're recreating.
And for any of our listeners who are looking for you or online resources, where do they find it?
So you can go to www.herhealthcollective.com. And we have a directory of experts there. We post new content every week from our experts. So these are from doctors and therapists providing free advice. And then we also have an award-winning podcast called Mama Needs a Moment. And that's where we interview our experts.
So before we finish, we're going to go to our final upward questions. So we're going to jump straight into the first one. If you could go back and give yourself one sentence of advice at your lowest point, what would it be?
I would tell myself to look for the glimmers. They're always there. And by glimmers, I mean what you had mentioned earlier, the beautiful red tree leaves in the fall, the ladybug, on your darkest day and in your darkest moment, there is something. And it might just be on that darkest day that you woke up and you took a breath.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be the glimmer for that day. But in those darkest moments, that's what I would say.
Yeah, there'll always be beauty to find. You've just got to be able to look for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And looking back on your journey now, is there anything you can smile or laugh about?
I would actually say all of it. I can smile at least at all of it. I might also cry, I'm being perfectly honest, but yeah. I can also smile at it because I think that, we can choose to either cry about the tough parts and the bad and challenging things that have happened to us, or we can choose to smile about it because those things are what have developed us into who we are today. It is those tough moments that are why I am here talking to you today. It is why I am resilient and started a business and show up with optimism every day. I would not be the optimistic person I am today if my car accident hadn't happened. Yeah. I wouldn't have the moments of clarity that I have if, I hadn't walked the Camino and experienced some of those things. So yeah, I think that I wouldn't change for the world, and I can smile at those tough moments.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for the chat.
Yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed it, and it was fun to talk with you, and I love listening to the Australian voice.
Oh, really?
Oh my gosh, yes. It reminds me of Charlie from the Camino, so.
Yeah, that's really cool. No, I really enjoyed chatting with you as well. Hi everyone, I just wanted to say if you or anyone you know has a story to share, please reach out so that I can keep bringing you stories from our community. Let's get as many voices heard as possible. And if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to like, subscribe, review, and follow. Thanks everyone!